Welcome to Not Entirely Unlike Tea with Christine Collins. Hey there, this is Christine Collins, and sometimes when we have challenging things going on or we've had a difficult situation, we have a tendency to have the desire to vent about it or talk about it with someone else. So when we have a challenging situation in our lives, whether we're trying to solve a problem or we've just simply had a frustrating experience and we want to call a best friend or talk to a partner or someone that we trust, we actually have a little bit of an experience of getting an oxytocin release and a reduction in cortisol. Now, some of this is going to be dependent upon the nature of the person you've chosen to confide in. And I've actually done a whole other podcast about how to choose who you go to for support to make sure that you're choosing people that will actually be supportive and not make your situation or your feelings worse. But in the event that we do find someone who helps to create emotional safety as we are sharing or venting our problems and situations, that emotional safety can help to slow down our heart rate, calm the body, and actually reset the nervous system when it is a safe support. So when we feel emotionally safe and emotionally regulated, our brain begins to release oxytocin, which is a bonding hormone. And it's not just feel-good chemistry, it's actually neurological safety. It reduces cortisol and it sends calming signals to the amygdala, which is our threat detection center. We can also end up in a co-regulation when you are interacting with someone who is emotionally stable themselves and the nervous systems between both people actually sync up. Their calmness, their steady heart rate, their slower breathing, their relaxed posture unconsciously signals a sense of safety to your own autonomic nervous system through mirror neurons. So it's not just that you're talking through the problem and feeling better, you're actually kind of borrowing their emotional regulation to help to regulate your own nervous system. That can activate the vagus nerve, it can cause that parasympathetic rest and digest response so that your own heart rate begins to slow down, your muscles relax and soften, your breathing deepens and gets slower, and you get a physical sense of relief after being truly heard and well supported. Now, in my other podcast, I talked about what can happen when we choose the wrong person to support us and they're actually very anxious or critical. That can obviously have the opposite effect and make the whole situation much worse. So ensuring that if you are going to vent to someone, that you are choosing wisely. These underlying mechanisms can work for anyone. And it is a little bit more pronounced in women because of the way oxytocin and estrogen interact. Oxytocin calms the stress response through social bonding. And when people feel heard and supported, that fear center in the brain and the amygdala becomes less active. And this is actually visible in real-time brain scans. So while women may have some stronger patterns of seeking emotional support and experiencing a little bit of enhanced oxytocin because of the interaction with estrogen, anybody can experience these neurological benefits from a quality emotional connection and good support. The key is just finding trusted people who are actually trustworthy, that are offering genuine emotional safety and co-regulation. Now, there is a flip side to this. So we've seen that it can be quite beneficial when we choose the right people to get support from. There are a whole host of positive body and mind responses that come from sharing something difficult and having a positive, constructive, supportive response from someone who themselves is in a calm and regulated emotional state. On the flip side, when venting about something becomes repetitive, continuously complaining about the same problems without taking any steps to make changes towards a solution, you begin to strengthen neural pathways associated with that pattern of negative thought. And so through neuroplasticity, which is our brain's ability to learn and rewire itself, it begins to make these negative thought patterns almost automatic. So every time you rehearse your problems and you speak about them over and over again, you're reinforcing all of those neural circuits that keep you stuck in that same emotional state. It's like you're walking the same pathway over and over and reinforcing the grooves every time you step across it. And eventually you create a deep enough groove that it becomes kind of your default state. And it interacts with our default mode network, the brain network that has to do with our self-narrative and our self-esteem. And instead of creative problem solving or mental restoration or some of those rejuvenating benefits we talked about, the network becomes dominated by repetitive negative thoughts. And this can begin to make it more difficult to shift our perspective, to see it in a new way, or most importantly, to access ways of actually improving or fixing the situation. So while we have that healthy emotional sharing that reduces cortisol and increases oxytocin, this chronic complaining keeps the stress hormones elevated and the cortisol elevated. Your amygdala remains in this heightened state of activity, and it continues to scan around looking for threats and problems, and it becomes almost a chronic behavior pattern of thinking there's always going to be something wrong next. So it's got this physiological feedback loop where your body just stays stuck in a mode of stress, and it can actually make you more likely to perceive new situations coming in through that lens as being threatening or problematic. And when we get stuck in some of these patterns, like continual chronic venting, your brain can actually become biased towards recalling other negative memories and experiences. So it's kind of like complaining about one thing triggers another memory and another one, and oh, they did this and they also did that, and then remember when that happened and they did that, and it creates like this snowball that just strengthens your overall negative emotional state while making it harder and harder to ever access any positive or even neutral memories or thoughts about that topic. It can also create negative emotional contagion between people. Again, thanks to mirror neurons, we can actually sort of catch emotional states from other people because the venter and the listener stress systems both become activated, potentially dysregulating both people rather than giving that benefit of that co-regulation that has the more positive interaction. And that's from chronic venting. And it can also reduce activity in the prefrontal cortex that is responsible for being logical, being problem solving, being flexible, where you actually become less and less able to see alternative perspectives over time, or to even generate any kind of creative solution or problem solving for the situation. So it really comes down to finding a good balance between seeking out support. So certainly we don't want to just contain everything within and stuff it down and continue to feel miserable when actually support would be really beneficial. So that comes down to finding those healthy, well emotionally regulated individuals or settings where you can safely discuss and talk about the situation and actually get real and positive support, but also keeping a balance with chronic venting where it begins to become a behavior pattern where you're constantly only complaining about the same topic over and over, perhaps to the same person or people, and no longer being willing to look at it from a problem solving or seeking support standpoint, but just complaining and continuously digging for more and more negative things about that situation. So the emotional state of your listener matters tremendously. That is probably one of the core features, is finding that really good support, and then balancing that venting or complaining or discussing about the problem, differentiating the activity of processing emotions versus rehearsing the problem over and over and digging it deeper and deeper. So healthy venting is moving you through your emotions towards a resolution or towards a sense of feeling heard and supported and gaining insight and gaining understanding or even acceptance from the person that you're discussing discussing it with, versus destructive venting, which just continues to circle around and around the same complaints without making any progress. And the timing makes a difference too. So occasional emotional release is healthy and necessary, particularly right after something has happened. But when the venting begins to become the primary coping mechanism, or begins to happen over and over multiple times, perhaps for years into the future, venting about the same event that occurred over and over, you risk strengthening those negative neural pathways and continuing down that rumination cycle that's only going to make you feel worse and worse over time and not actually solve the problem. So it isn't about never venting. It's about being intentional about when and how and with whom we share the struggles, because our brains are designed for that connection and that co-regulation, but also designed to learn and adapt and seek solutions. So finding that balance is key. And if you find yourself wanting or needing just a little extra support, one tool that can be extremely helpful for this is EFT tapping. And in my monthly mindset membership, all of the information available for you there in the show notes, I do offer EFT tapping videos along with many other mindset tools like hypnosis, yoga nidra, meditation, and visualization, all of which can support you if you are working more on your own. These tools are available for you on demand 24/7 anytime you need that support. And until we connect the next time, I wish you the most magical and creative rest of your day. Thanks for listening. This is Christine Collins at transformcreate.com.